They said getting started was the hardest part, but no one told you how hard it is to scale a custom service business. It's time for your team to step up, but your clients want you. Discover how to scale to 7 figures and beyond by freeing up time and getting your team to run whole parts of the company so you can focus on scaling profits. This is the Hands Off CEO with Mandy Ellefson.
Hello, this is Mandy Ellefson. I am the host of the Hands Off CEO podcast. And today our guest is Madeleine Silva. And, Madeleine Silva is a real firecracker. And what she does is she works with physicians and she helps them grow their practice. And she's very innovative. And, she's been a part of our tribe, part of our Scale to Freedom tribe. And when we first started working together, she was at this point where she was having real capacity issues. She could only work with a few clients at a time. And, that was really capping her income. And the only way that she could make more money is to work more and more hours. And she just, she wanted to grow this company that could run without her. In fact, she'd actually grown another company and sold it and exited, but it was a different type of company. And this consulting company, is really based on her knowledge. So, how could she scale that? So we're going to walk through how she scaled that and also how she's been able to 10x her income and create that 10x the amount of growth since the beginning of the year. During COVID, and how she's innovated her business model to really thrive during this market. When it first hit, it was really hard for her because, in the medical industry, there were how these different practices chose to respond to the changes in the market is quite drastic. So, we're going to share how she was able to evaluate which parts of the market to go after to really to make her service relevant. And also she's going to be sharing what has been working for her to create such fast, rapid growth in her business and really being able to go from her capacity around 3 clients to now having a capacity for 20 clients. So, it's really exciting. She's also been able to increase her fees considerably from this. This is definitely a great CEO to learn from. And, I am so excited to have Madeleine here on the show today. So enjoy.
Hello, this is Mandy Ellefson, host of the Hands Off CEO podcast. I have Madeleine Silva here on the podcast. Welcome to the show, Madeleine.
Oh, thank you so much, Mandy. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, I am thrilled to have you. Madeleine and I, whenever we have conversations, we always have a lot of fun. There's always a lot of laughter. Before we even got started, we had some fun things to laugh about already. Madeleine is an absolute genius. So I'm so excited to have her on the podcast here. So Madeleine has 28 years of experience working in private healthcare practices. She's established 5 successful businesses on her own, and she's even sold to 2 of them for top dollar. And she's survived and thrived through financial crises. And really, Madeleine brings her own unique perspective and skill set to rebuilding profitable and sustainable healthcare practices that can weather any economic storm. So one of the things that is so interesting about Madeleine is that she has these really cool processes that guarantee results for healthcare practices. And I'm just going to let you actually share that because you can do a lot better job than I can on that. So tell me, what do you do for these healthcare practices?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely a unique perspective because it's very customized depending on what the clinic really needs and what the doctor's end goal is. So I'm always looking to build a business that the doctor actually want to be in the end. Because so often when I step into somebody's office or practice and they've been in practice for 10 or 15 or 20 years and they have a very successful business as far as revenue streams, but oftentimes they're just stuck in the middle of that business, putting out fires, and they're pretty much running their business out of that treatment room, seeing patients day to day. And they never really achieved the freedom they wanted or the profitability they wanted. And so they really tied to the business. So what I like to do is figure out, well, what are those vision and big dreams that you had when you first started your business that you kind of abandoned somewhere along the way just to deal with reality? and, do what you needed to do to run the business. And once we started uncovering those, and we can put together a game plan for how to achieve those things for them. And the end result is highly profitable. And, I have a guarantee of adding a minimum of $100,000 of net profits to people's practices. Oftentimes it's 500,000, sometimes it's $1 million. Taking practices from being in the red, $40,000 one year, having to put in their own personal money just to make the business stay afloat, to the next year having be on the trajectory to adding a 1.2 profit to the business. That's not even the gross revenue. So crazy results, and having a lot of fun doing it with a lot of ease and fun, and really kind of tapping into that bigger vision of what they want to create.
Yeah, I love that. And that takes some serious skills, right? You've been doing this for 28 years. So that's how you have all this. And this is, I remember this was one of the things that we actually got connected initially, because this type of work is very custom. So what that means is like you're in their business doing all of this. So what kind of challenges were you running into earlier on? I mean, even like a year ago, with actually trying to scale this?
Yes, because it's so customized, and because I'm really committing getting results for my clients. I'm not the kind of person that's just going to give them a bunch of data that they need to then consume or try to understand and then try to implement on their own. So I actually get in the trenches with them and roll up my sleeves and work alongside them and their team and project manage the whole thing when we're implementing these strategies into their practice. So it's very customized because everybody has a different game plan of where they want to end up. And in the beginning, I was taking on maybe 1 to 2 clients at this level at the time, because I was doing so much of the heavy lifting for them. And we still do a lot of the heavy lifting, but we definitely streamline the processes now and are simplifying. So now, I relaunched the business in March, right in smack in the middle of our beautiful pandemic. And, and so that was, in and of itself, kind of a fun adventure. And, ended up 10xing the business the first 6 months of the year. And that was really fun. And now we are working with 10 clients, and I'm building it up to having the capacity now to seeing 20 clients at a time at that level, and still being able to deliver on the promises, because it's always about results, the end results that I can get for my clients. It's what's the driving force in my business.
So I love this, and congratulations on all that growth. It's been so inspiring to see how fast you pick things up and you implement them. And it's just been so much fun. But I'd love to hear, what did it take for you to go from where you could only be working with 2 clients at a time? And I remember having this conversation with you, and I'm like, I could see a bigger vision for you, but you just weren't seeing it yet. And now you're at 10, and now you're seeing, we totally can do 20. So what shifted for you between 2 and 10 that now you see it's possible to do 20?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, just working with more clients, I started to seeing really the processes, the actual step-by-steps that I take them through. And obviously working with you and getting the client success map dialed in, which really it forced me to think about my business in a process way. Now, I love systems, so it's a natural tendency for me to look at systems and processes and categorizing and patterns. But I couldn't quite wrap my head around it until you kind of really forced me and kind of pinned me down and made me do it. So I appreciate that. That was definitely needed. And so that was the driving force, the beginning of it. And then also being in your program and seeing how you have laid out hands-off CEO so brilliantly, and how you, even though every business that you work with have different challenges, just like my clients, you've been able to lay out the processes in the program where people will work their way through it. And so I started kind of modeling some of the back end of the processes that I have for my clients as well. So when I build out my program, I now have a step-by-step process, 4 steps, the analysis, and then where we really deep dive into what is it that I really want, how's the business doing right now? And then we really look at the strategic plan of how to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And we really narrow it down to what is the one linchpin that's going to take care of 90% of the problems for them. So we really look at that. And step three is really just the implementation, getting into the nitty gritty and then implementing that strategic plan. And number 4, getting the reward of putting all of that, slowing down enough to put the plan in place. And the reward is really mostly freedom and having really the profitability that I need in a business, both to reinvest in a business and have the kind of lifestyle and life that I want.
Mm. Well, and I love this because your process, one of the things, like as we were going through and putting together this client success map, we looked at like, what are the stages where you're actually finding the money for them? So it really wasn't an investment because you found the money for them, right?
Yes. That's the first step. That's pretty much what we do in the analysis. We look at where they're losing money. And we look at what do we need to do to really rev up the engine on the profit centers that they already have in their business. And how do we stop them from losing money in their business? So many people have money leaks that we just need to plug those holes and eliminate some of those things. Just doing those 2 things to start off with can skyrocket their profit margins just from simple strategies.
Mm. Well, I love this. You actually took this assessment process that we have, and you took it and you brought it to a whole new level. And now you're doing this consultative selling process. And I mean, in its own right, you could be charging, $10,000 for this service. I'm not sure what you're charging now or if you're charging at all, but how has that impacted your ability to be consistently attracting ideal clients that pay top dollar for what you're doing?
Yeah, that has been the biggest game changer, I would say, to my success this year is implementing the pre-selling process, where I really take people through the first 2 steps, the analysis, the deep dive, and really figuring out what is going on in their business right now, and figuring out what is the strategic plan to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And we do those 2 things, what I call the profit recovery audit. And we invest a full 6 hours with each client and really deep dive alongside them into their business. Like, I just think many coaches and consultants just don't invest that level of time in really figuring out what is going on in people's businesses before they take them on as a client. And so that's what we do that I think really sets us apart. So I know the kind of results I can get for a client just from doing that. And then it also allows the client to see their business from my perspective, from my point of view, which I think, when you're in the trenches day to day, working in your business, you lose sight sometimes. And the goalpost keeps changing. You're putting out fires. You're in the trenches, just getting stuff done, what needs to get done day to day. And it's hard sometimes to see the big picture. And so in the analysis, we really drill that down, and I share my perspective as I'm going through and asking questions about their business and what's going on. And it allows them to have many aha moments that just opens up the possibilities and the opportunities for them, and also see where maybe they invested in the wrong thing at the wrong time. Because so many end up spending money on coaches or consultants or training or marketing tools or strategies in their business, and it doesn't bring them the ROI that they're really after. And usually that happens because they're investing in the wrong thing at the wrong time. So really understand the timing of what to invest in at what point in your business is really important. So I really lay all of those things out for them so that they have a clear idea, okay, this is what it takes for me to get to the next level. And they can clearly see it, feel it, touch it, and that just transformed my business because now it's like a no-brainer. It's so easy for them to go, of course I want support in getting this done. And even if they don't want our support, once they've gone through the profit audit, I share all my notes with them. They have all the knowledge that we've gone through both in the analysis and in the strategic plan. So they can obviously take it and implement it on their own if they wanted to. But 85% of the people who take through that process say yes to working with us. And then we just, get in there with them in their business and work alongside them and their team and get these things moving really quickly so they can start seeing an ROI within, 30 to 90 days. they start getting their money back.
That is a killer close rate. It's 85%. So then how do you qualify? Because like to be able to get that close rate, you have to make sure you're actually talking to someone you can help. That you're actually, because it's 6 hours, it's an investment. So how do you know?
Yeah, huge investment. So surprisingly enough, I haven't had hardly anybody who signs up for the profit audit who's not a fit. I think I've had one person that I kind of ended the analysis because he was just so clearly not a fit. But for the most part, once people get there, they're ready to go. And I attribute that to my messaging and how I position myself, both my website messaging and my marketing messaging, how I talk about what it is that I do out in the world. And we have some benchmarks. I have a little bit of a questionnaire that I fill out before they schedule the profit audit, so we can kind of get a feeling if they're going to be a good fit for us. And we like to work with doctors that are in, 700, 500, 700,000 to $1 million. So we kind of like to work people who have a little bit more of a complex business. They've gotten through the startup phase. They're looking to scale up and really explode their business. And in a practice, brick and mortar business, if you're not making $500,000, if you have team members and such and other practitioners working with you, you are barely, you can't really make it. So we're looking for clients in that bracket who can really, we're really looking to grow even bigger from there, to really establish themselves as a leader in their community.
So what I'm hearing from you is that one of the biggest things is to attract in these right type of clients is your messaging and how you're positioning on your website. So how did the client success map that you put together impact that?
Well, hugely, because you'll see if you step onto my website, the Healthcare Profit Strategist, just on the service page, I have the 4 steps of the success map easily spelled out there. I also really need to pinpoint exactly who I work with. So I work with vitalistic doctors, and I shared a little bit about the revenue goals that I want them to have and where I want them to be in the business growth. But I also primarily work with doctors in private practice with a certain revenue stream and who are focused on vitalistic health. And that is part of my messaging all the way through. And I'm also asking people to be with a certain mindset. They have to be growth oriented. They have to be entrepreneurs in the sense that they're innovators and interested in growing and open-minded enough to take the feedback and the recommendations that we're making. And I move fast, so I want to work with fast implementers, people who can implement quickly and are excited and get the concept fairly fast so we can move them along.
So I love that. And one of the things that I have seen with you is that you're an example of like what I'm seeing in the market with the polarized. There's businesses that are doing really well, and there are businesses that are doing terrible. And what is it that you're doing that's making you do really well, that's leading to your success?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about all these things, but like, how has the pandemic helped your business, basically?
How's the pandemic helped my business? Yeah. I think the biggest thing that happened for my audience, for the people that I help, the doctors, there's a couple of things. One, the pandemic put a pause on the busy life that they were in the midst of. And they realized that a lot of the things that they know they needed to implement in their business, things they put on pause because they've been too busy running their practices, all of a sudden now became important to implement. It became much more important to make these changes. And I had a lot of doctors that had been in business for many years, 10, 14, 15 years, and they were unhappy in their business. They were working themselves to the bone. They were stressed out. They didn't have the lifestyle they wanted. I even had a client who would work long days, 2 days in a row, and would literally sleep on her office floor because she lived an hour and a half from her practice. And she was doing that for a year and a half, and it was exhausted. So by the time she was forced to close down her practice because of the lockdown, it was almost a relief. She finally got some time off. And so I found a lot of clients found themselves in that mindset. And then when they sat at home, they started thinking about, well, what is it that I really want? What do I want instead? And in that conversation, they reached out to me. We did a profit audit. They got a lot more clarity of what was possible for them and what they wanted. And then it was like, yes, let's do it. And the other thing that happened with the pandemic is it totally removed this fear of ruffling feathers or rocking the boat, because the boat has already been sunk in a way, right? With the pandemic, it kind of went away, right? So they knew that patients wasn't going to be upset, or other practitioners that I might be working with the business model, employees wouldn't be upset. Like there was so many other things. If they needed to make changes, it was kind of okay. They got permission to maybe recreate their life, a second chance. So that opportunity for them and that mindset made it a perfect match for me to connect with them in that moment. And then now we are rebuilding their businesses so that they get to have exactly what they wanted.
I love that. And do you think that's just doctors? Do you think that maybe all of us are in that boat?
I think all of us are in that boat.
Because I think that it's easy enough to say, well, you know what, doctors were hit pretty hard. Madeleine's business is new, but you know what? No, you created this. The past year, you've been putting everything in place, and it's not just the right time, right place at the right time. You were prepared. You were prepared to be able to optimize this in your business. And I think that there's a lot of consultants that can also be in that place right now. And I think you're a perfect example of that, of just being prepared, investing ahead. I mean, you're I was so inspired where to see you invest ahead in your business, and you really invested at the level where you were like, I'm creating this. I'm creating where I want to be. And that was just very inspiring for me. And I see you do that in how you run your business.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe in investing in the future. I know that many of us sit on our marbles and wish that we had the money before we had to invest. I think that's a natural tendency to think that way. Oh, I'm going to wait until I make some more money and then I'll invest. And I would just say that is the biggest mistake that many entrepreneurs make, is being too afraid to take the risk to invest ahead of the time. But when you do, when you fork out that big change, I invested half of my revenue the year prior. Now I know I was on a trajectory to double that year that I signed up with you. But at the same time, the year prior, there was half of my yearly revenue. And it was such a clear yes for me at the moment, because I knew that it was going to put me in the pressure cooker while I was going to have to figure it out, right? I was going to have to figure out how I was going to make that money back. And so for me, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I believe that being an entrepreneur is a little bit like jumping out of a 12-story building and building a plane on the way down, that's a little bit how it is. And so I love the deadline. I love the pressure cookers. So I rise to that occasion. But I think that if more entrepreneurs do that, they too would see much bigger breakthroughs in their businesses.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And that takes some serious courage to do that. And I really acknowledge you for that. And, our clients that have had to make bigger sacrifices, like those are the people I really am just like, wow, that's just like so inspiring. And we see them grow so quickly. And, it comes back to like one of the first sales that you made off your client success map. You were such a fast implementer. So do you want to tell us about that first sale? Because I remember you went from, why don't you tell the story?
Yeah. So, I primarily work with practices that's already well established, that already have a lot of their marketing and sales processes in place. And then we really help them really scale it up, right? And really build it up. And this was an opportunity that was presented to me because one of my friends brought me a referral, and she was a startup doctor and in startup practice. And the only reason I even considered working with her was because she was very well established in her field and a leader in the field, and she was doing something incredibly unique. And so I was inspired by her mission and also saw her as a total powerhouse. I was like, yes, let's partner and really build your business from scratch. And let's make this happen. But it was a totally different package than what I usually do. And again, this is not a client that I normally would take on. So I had to create something customized. But I walked her through, I created a sales process, basically a sales presentation customized to her and what she was going through, and walked her through the steps that we would be implementing into a business and what was needed. And so again, so that she could see what I saw as the possible. And I did some math for her, really broke it down for her so she could see the path forward. Because here's the thing, if your clients don't realize what is possible for them and they can't see them for themselves, even if you see it, it's really hard for them to invest. So I think that was a really important part, which is exactly what we do with a profit audit as well. And then once she kind of got the big picture, I sold her and I doubled my fee. So usually my fee is $35,000 for the year. But in that situation, I doubled it. And so it was $60,000 for the year. And that was the flat rate. And then there was also a percentage on the back end. So once I did the math on the percentage on the back end, it was really a $300K sale. And so, yeah, that was my very first sale that I did after the Client Success Met. It was quite exciting.
That was really exciting. It was something like 6 or 9 weeks, something like that. And I was like, whoa, Madeleine's a powerhouse. And you got some serious respect from everyone in the tribe. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It's always fun.
Yeah. Well, and that process that the consultative selling process with your audit, we walked through that together. And I hope that we were looking for ways to even improve it. I hope that's helped you since then. And some other people in the tribe have been using it and they're like, whoa, this is awesome. Madeleine is so smart. So just want to let you know that's being put to good use and people are really appreciating it.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I love what you said about that the clients need to see a clear pathway forward. They need to see how they're going to make their money back. And it's really hard for them to imagine otherwise, especially because they're in this different world. And I think this was exactly where you were at too. You worked with 2 clients, like, how can I possibly scale and work with more? I can't work with more than 2. I'm here sitting here teaching other people how to have freedom. And I can't work with more than 2. So what, I mean, I hope that I showed you a clear enough path that you could see that. But it's such an important distinction that you made there about how important it is to actually show a clear path to success for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been key for my selling process for sure. And that's why it's worth the 6 hours of investment in working people through the profit audit and taking people through that. Because once they really see it, it's such an easy yes for them. It's such an easy yes. So don't be afraid to invest time, especially if you have a high-end offer. And if you don't have a high-end offer, then talk to Mandy. She'll make sure you have one before the conversation is over. She's brilliant at figuring that out.
Well, thank you for that. Speaking of high-end offers, let's talk about the lower-end offers, because I know this was one of the pathways that you were considering scaling, and you'd actually even gone in this direction a little bit with like a coaching program as like, you know what, I can't do the high ticket scaling this high ticket. So let's do a lower ticket in like a group coaching program. Like, can you tell me how that has gone and how do you see that compared to what you've been doing now with the higher ticket services?
Yeah. So I also have a year-long program for solopreneurs that teach them more just how to build a business from scratch, or even if they're just a solopreneur kind of plugging along at 50,000 and they want to bring it up to maybe 250K or 100K or whatever the limits are, or what they're looking for. And that program, it's just a $7,500 program. So it's a lower end offer. And I just find that it takes just as much time and effort to sell that program as my higher end offer. And I would actually go so far now with my experience and with the sales process that I developed is that it's way easier for me to sell the high end offer now. Like so much easier than have conversation with people who are struggling to even make a $7,500 investment into their business because they're barely making any money at all. So it's much easier to talk to entrepreneurs that have a proven method, that have some success in their businesses, and spending that consultation during the profit audit where we really spend all that time with them. It's really easy to then sell the high-end offer. So that has been mind-blowing. And I also think to only invest and spend time on one offer in your business. don't try to sell more than one thing at a time. It's just going to waste your efforts, and you're much better off zeroing in on one thing, selling that all the way through, than having 3 or 4 different offers and different tiers, because it just takes just as much time to sell a $300 thing as a $5,000 thing.
And I love that you said that, because I come across consultants, agency owners all the time who get to a point where like they have capacity issues. They realize that like the only way I can scale this is to work more and more hours. And they're at this point where like, well, maybe I just need to go and do like this coaching model, or maybe I need to go sell products. And they like think that that's the way to go. And I mean, you kind of have already shared that you've had a different experience in that, but what would you say to them if they're looking at that?
Yeah, I love what you really helped me do, is to really look at what is the best offer, like what is the best service that I can provide to my clients that brings the biggest results. I mean, I feel like you really forced me to look at that. And when I really started looking at that, this is really how I honed in at this high-end customized consulting packages, because I get to create phenomenal results for my clients and really transform their businesses from the ground up and turn them into turnkey businesses. And when I started looking at that, that just turned me on so much too. It made me so excited about the work that I do. So it was so much more fun to work at that level and be able to create that level of change. Doing the smaller end packages feels more like a compromise, or you kind of watering down what it is that you really do. And to me, that feels like drudgery. And so, and so then, and I wasn't that excited about selling that program. And I wasn't that excited about working with those kind of clients. And so I think that the fact that you forced me to really look at those pieces really shifted my mindset around what was possible.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's going to be really valuable for a lot of people listening to this, because that's kind of a trap that it's easy to fall into, that like the grass is greener over there. And I'm glad to hear that you have experience that you can share, that, what it might actually look like. So anyway, Madeleine, it has been such a pleasure having you. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the quickest way is probably just to either connect with me on Facebook. And there's lots of links to both some freebies I have, and a Facebook group where I help doctors build profitable business. So those are some freebies that you can grab on my Facebook page. And of course, my website, healthcareprofitstrategist.com, has also tons of resources. And if you're interested in talking to me about the profit recovery audit, then you can find more information on there and also reach me there.
Love it. I love it. Madeleine, it's always a pleasure talking with you. And I have referred a number of people over to Madeleine because her work is absolutely brilliant. So, and it's been such a pleasure working with you, Madeleine, because just to see how you've been able to package this together in a way where you can really make even bigger difference in this community. It's just so exciting for me. So, well done. And thank you again for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mandy. I couldn't have done it without you. I really appreciated your coaching and to keep me accountable to the big goals that I have myself. So thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hands Off CEO with Mandy Ellefson. If you want to work less and make more, make sure you subscribe and get a new episode every week. And help spread the word by leaving a review.